What's up guys, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you my framework or thoughts on how obsession fuels execution and my thought process into how basically I see this moving into the future for myself and also for the team as well. And the mission of why I'm basically doing this and showing you guys how I use these mental models and frameworks and think about things is basically to show our builds raw and real, to show you the good, the bad, the ugly, what it is that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, and also to solve really messy, complicated problems and to just create value, and also just to call in visionaries, basically people that get the mission of what it is that we're building, and also just to build a network of cool people. So how I'm basically turning obsession into execution is in 5 simple steps. Like I always like to break things down into 5 simple steps, of which the first one is obsession or obsess over purpose, which why this matters is a weak why gets you nowhere. My obsession is building an empire that kills chaos and proves where I'm from, doesn't cap my wins, which is basically sharing my story to say, hey, my why is so strong, and the reason why I had this strong why is why we're gonna build this machine of building systems as well, because we just genuinely believe that what we are doing creates value into the future for the clients and the partners that we are working with, and just saying, hey, this is what we're building, and this why is the reason why we're able to build at this rate. And how I'm actively doing this is every morning I just read my purpose saying, hey, Killer Chaos reshapes industries, and starting with planners by crushing chaos, it's my North Star, of which is the why for what it is that we're building at this current present moment in time. Because without that why, you don't have direction in terms of what it is that you're aiming for, and without that and clarity for what it is that you truly want to aim for, you're gonna be lost, and you're gonna find yourself doing things that you may not find as ROI for your business. And this is just personally just not the way to do things. And it also drives my vision. For example, 12-hour days, pitching planners, and building systems is the number one thing that drives ultimately what it is that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, and also just learning and just implementing the things that we're actively learning into the systems and processes that we are currently building, and also mental models. And the lesson that I've also learned from this is a clear why makes you unstoppable, simply because you have that direction that you wouldn't have if you didn't have that why. And the grounding question that I like to ask for this is, what's one reason I'm grinding that I'll never quit? And I think this is such a powerful tool or question to ask yourself as well, to ask, what is the one reason that I'm grinding so hard that I'll never quit? Because by simply just answering that, you know your why, and you understand what it is that you're doing this, and why that is that you're pushing so hard. Because when you realize what it is that you're doing for, through the tough times, you actively just gonna reflect on it and say, hey, this is the reason why I'm doing this, and I'm not gonna stop simply because of that. And which also just leads into the second point, which is obsession demands action. Without action, you're nowhere. Even with obsession, you need to obsess, but through action as well. And why this matters is basically obsession without action is basically daydreaming. I'm turning mine into daily moves that stack, because actively having that level of obsession ultimately allows me to move into creating value into the future, and just being more proactive in what it is that we're building. And how I'm doing this is basically pitching planners each day on X, and also just connecting with people to say, hey, let's connect. This is what we're building. For example, your events need our systems. Let's talk. And also posting these daily videos, just by demanding action and being obsessed with what it is that we're building, and also showing you how we're doing things, how we're implementing things, and also into the future, so that we can reflect on this and say, hey, these are the mental models that we were using then, and this is how it's shaped how we're building tomorrow. And also the lesson that I've ultimately learned from this is small consistent moves compound into big wins, which ultimately means that, hey, you don't always have to look for the biggest win. Even small daily wins also compound, which ultimately can add up to you having a massive win. So it's all not always about chasing those big massive wins, but also those small consistent ones, because they also just build momentum. And also just asking the grounding question, which I also like to ask myself, is What's one move I can make today that my future self will thank me for? And this can be just posting these daily videos. Because, for example, for us, the reason why I'm doing this is also just to connect with cool people, but also for ourselves to just basically build better mental models into the future to say, hey, this is how we're building now, this is how we're building into the future. Which ultimately leads to the third point, of which is obsession blocks distractions. And why this matters is doubts, haters, shiny objects, they're all noise. Obsession keeps you laser focused. The number one thing is when you're obsessed with what it is that you're building, you need to be super dialed in, and you need to say, hey, all the other things that are causing noise, you need to block that, because you know what your vision is and you ultimately just want to work towards that. And having obsession blocks all the other noise, because you know that one thing that you want to work towards is the one thing that you're absolutely putting all of your time and effort into. And how I'm doing this is I don't scroll for hours. I basically build connections through tools. So for example, X, Instagram, to basically say, hey, we want to connect with people that are like-minded and get what it is that we're doing, and also just build cool things along the journey with those people. And when doubt hits, I build just basically saying, hey, whenever I feel a bit of doubt, I basically just say, hey, let's build. What are we going to build today? Custom dashboard, make.com automations, what it is that we're actively doing on a day-to-day basis, just so that we keep that doubt away through action. And the lesson that I've learned from this is noise kills progress, obsession kills noise. With this, ultimately, you say like, hey, noise kills progress, and all the other things that people may be saying or that may be distracting you on a day-to-day basis, they kill your progress. But obsession is what kills the noise from that. If you're just super dialed in and focused on what it is that you're building, all the noise is blocked out simply through obsession. And the grounding question that I find from here is, what's the one distraction that I can cut to stay locked in? Of which ultimately, just by asking this, I can say, hey, we want to build the best systems in the world, and I want to be super dialed in into understanding every single moving part there is in terms of building these back-end systems, and just actively just building towards that. And then, which ultimately just leads into the fourth point of mine, which I have to share with, is why this matters is basically saying, this fourth point is obsession eats failure, and why this matters is setbacks aren't stops, they're lessons. Like Napoleon Hill says, that temporary defeat does come, but it's not permanent. And most of the defeats that you may come along your journey are simply just temporary defeats, and sometimes they may seem like permanent defeats, but ultimately most of the things that you fail at are ultimately just lessons and temporary defeat, and all you have to do is just keep on going. And obsession, what I find at least, is it eats failure completely. If you're just super obsessed and dialed in, what is failure? Failure does not exist. Yes, it's there, but for me it's super quiet when I'm just super dialed in and saying, hey, we're gonna make this work no matter what, and we're gonna be super laser focused on this. And my obsession turns flops into fuel, so whenever we do mess up, it's always us shifting from why did we fail to how can we improve the next time, so that we can actively just continuously build what it is that we're actively building. And how I'm doing this is saying, hey, a pitch that we did got ghosted, we tweak it by saying, hey, how can we improve, and we send 10 more and just get that feedback from that. We collect the data of saying, hey, this messaging might have not worked, or this pitch or this color or whatever it may be didn't work. Let's try something else and stick to what works, just to ultimately refine our processes in as much as possible. Of which also this video series that I'm doing now is obsession eats failure. So this may work, this may not work, but I'm always just going to be asking, how can we push the needle forward, and how can I constantly just make these videos better, ultimately just by tweaking one small thing. Is it the messaging, is it the way that I speak, is it my hand movements, or what is it? Just by simply asking those questions and getting data from that, and ultimately just constantly innovating on that. And another way that I am actively doing this is, systems crashed, we rebuild them tighter and we do it faster. So ultimately saying, hey, our system is crashing, how do we improve this? How do we then understand how to better the systems, and we build it tighter and then we build it faster. And the lesson that I've learned from here is, failure is just feedback. Use it quick, ultimately meaning saying, hey, feedback is the number one thing that we always strive for, and I always strive for the team as well, to say, hey, what we're striving for is feedback and source of truth. So ultimately all the failures are just leading us to the feedback that we need in order to unlock that source of truth that we are seeking within what it is that we're building. And the grounding question I like to ask here is, what's one failure I can turn into a win this week? And it can be something super small that you may not think is huge, but it ultimately just moves the needle. And just constantly asking the questions of, how can I turn this one failure into something that moves the needle? And oftentimes I found that that one failure that I thought was a failure is ultimately what's allowed me to move the needle a lot further along within the team as well. So, which ultimately leads to the fifth point, which is building bigger, or build bigger, which ultimately means why this matters is obsession isn't just for today, it's for the empire. Scaling mine to $100 million by starting small and dreaming big. So this is just a number that we just put in there and say, hey, we want to turn this into $100 million empire. And how are we going to do this? We're going to do this by starting small. And how I'm actively doing this is through planners first, saying building systems that save hours, pitching bigger deals, and saying, hey, we're going to build better systems, and we're just going to keep on innovating from the first people that we are working with until the next move that we will be making. And next, coaching aviation, any industry with chaos, that ultimately allows us to get to our goal of saving businesses a lot of time and also cash in their pockets. And the lesson that I've learned from this is, obsess over the next step, but keep the big picture alive, which is ultimately the number one thing is, hey, we need to keep the ultimate overarching goal still alive, even though we're taking the next step. We need to make sure that it is aligned with what we ultimately want to achieve and are striving for on a daily basis. And the grounding question I like to ask here is, what's my biggest vision, and what's one move I can make forward today that will ultimately allow us to reach that ultimate vision? And I know that just by asking these simple questions and just by going through this, we'll ultimately just keep refining the machine, and we'll get better, tighter feedback loops that ultimately allow us to build better systems and better processes in mental models as well, and ultimately just allows us to obsess more over execution and just trying new things and just doing things and failing fast and iterating even faster. And I know with this, we're just going to constantly refine it. And into the future, we're just going to look back on this and build better systems and build better mental models. And if this was any value to you, connect with me on X or Instagram. And I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. And I'll see you guys in the next one.